Immaculate View on Twitter. There is now a stir about the future of the Pac-12. I find it very interesting that they want to move to 8 teams. Scott Barnes, the athletic director at Oregon State, said months ago apparently 8 is the right number. It keeps you nimble. Is the Pac-12 coming back with 8?
I would list it as a potential. When you're in this type of a situation, you probably need to have more than one potential solution for your problem. You're looking down the line, you're seeing this has to happen, then this has to happen. And as more of these events happen, such as us finding out about governance, you can now see some other moves happening. Like we'll see what the ACC does, who goes where, who doesn't go where. That might determine what they have to do. So yeah, at some point they do need a plan for what to do with the Pac-12 in case that becomes the eventual result. And we talked about that with the 8 team. I do agree. You want to stay as small first initially, get what you can, and not go at the networks with a much larger group that you need much more money for.
Sounds like Oregon State and Washington State, and I get why their attention's been pulled this way, are now focused on rebuilding the Pac-12. And a lot of this comes from John Canzano, who says, it's quoted in here saying, the Beavers and Cougars have until the summer of 2026 to reach a minimum of 8 teams and meet the NCAA's requirement. Is the focus now, if you're Washington State and Oregon State, to recreate the Pac-12, or should they be turned to an ACC that might have a spot coming up?
I think that's their first. Whether it's the ACC or Big 12, if something was to come out of there as an offering, that's where you're going to go.
Yeah,
it's not even a question. But you got to have your backup plan. If that doesn't come, what are we going to do? And part of the problem with that, though, is that they've made a deal with the Mountain West.
Correct.
And part of that is about not splitting it up and doing things. And the Mountain West knows about this, because then you go back to the history of the WAC. You're basically saying the Oregon State and Washington State would do what the Mountain West schools did to the WAC. So they're very aware of that type of move. So that's what interests me in that, is how will they respond to this?
Right. And if they want to go to 8 and they've just signed a deal with the WAC, then like a Boise State, UNLV, a San Diego State, how do you try to convince teams that are in a conference, the Mountain West Conference, in that conference that you've signed a contract with, to abandon and then come join you? I just don't. What I'm struggling to see here, Immaculate, is how 8 can be viable enough to generate revenue more than the Mountain West already does.
Well, 8 is the magic number for the NCAA. You have to have 8 to be a sanctioned conference.
Yeah.
So you got to get to at least that. And that's why I think he's probably sticking at that. Like, that's the lowest possible number that you want.
I love that the quote is, it keeps us nimble. No, it's the minimum. It's the reason you want to get to 8. It's not to be nimble. It's to reach the minimum.
Like if that was 6 like it used to be, he'd probably say 6.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think that's largely why he's talking that number, is he's saying to whatever potential deals that they might be able to work out, like, look, we're going to keep this to the minimum amount of payouts possible. So, they've now got deals with CW, they got deals with Fox, they might talk with ESPN. Who knows who they might try to talk a deal with? But you're basically saying to them out loud is, we will be as small as possible, so that way the payment from you to us will be as small as possible.
The hurt that's been put on those 2 universities in the last year, from athletic directors leaving for rival schools to head coaches leaving and abandoning, and I get it, right? They went from being a Power 5 school in the Pac-12, Washington State and Oregon State, to, in essence, off the table. Is this the best case scenario? I mean, for me, right, we talked 6 months ago about the Big 12's viability, and a lot of things shook up in the ACC that hurt the odds of those 2 schools making it in. And then you talk about the future of the ACC and do they have a chance out there? My question becomes, what is right now the best case scenario for Washington State and Oregon State? And is it an 8-team Pac-12?
No. That's probably worst case. But it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's, I think if they're really looking at what they want, they're either looking to maybe fill in with the ACC, or best case scenario to bring it back to the Big 12. And I know a lot of Big 12 fans aren't hot on this idea, but their best case scenario would be to get in the Big 12, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You join the other 4 teams. Maybe after we get governance, we see divisions. if you're to go to 24 schools and have 4 divisions of 6, they would fill right in with your West. So like you'd bring Colorado over, you'd have Utah, BYU, Oregon State, Washington State, Arizona State as a 6-team Western Division. So in my opinion, that's still their best. Now, whether or not your Big 12 fans who follow you would think so, they might say differently.
If that's the question, then can Washington State and Oregon State get to the Big 12 as of today, late June of 2024? Is the answer still yes, it's on the table?
I would say yes is a possibility, but the answer to them is a no for right now. Like, we need to see other things happen. We need to get details on governance. We need to see where the ACC goes. Big 12 is looking at ACC first. Yeah. First and foremost. They're not going to take up spots with Oregon State and Washington State while they're still looking at possibilities to the east. So once we see how that plays out, we could probably find a better answer for Oregon State and Washington State.
There is a very good chance in that Oregon State and Washington State, as all of this settles out in the next 6 months, have some sort of clarity. Is that a true statement? Is 6 months a timeline that those fans can rely on?
Some sort of clarity, yes. I wouldn't say 100% clarity, but I do believe we are going to start having some answers this summer before football starts.
And boy, when those answers come out, Immaculate will be right here on Locked On Big 12, breaking it down for us. There is certainly turmoil with a possible rebuild of the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. You go to the ACC, and I think there are a lot of dominoes that need to fall in those next 6 months, or as you said, even as early as this summer, before we get full clarity on not just Washington State and Oregon State, but also the Big 12, who was recently rumored to be in the ring for Clemson and Florida State. Now, Brett McMurphy's brought this up before. We've heard this conversation on multiple different avenues, and it's mostly been shot down. But now certain sourcing is saying, hey, what if with this private equity deal, the Big 12 is a lot more viable? Let's talk about that next on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Look, LinkedIn Talent Solutions is where I go to make new hires, because I'm in essence a small business. I have Toll Marketing LLC as my small business. And what I need to do is hire for people who run social media. I hate doing like the press tweet thing. I like to tweet funny things sometimes, but Zach, my new intern on social media, has been spectacular. He came from LinkedIn Talent Solutions. 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. If you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses, myself included, are wearing so many hats, and they want to help make the whole process a lot easier for you. They're constantly finding ways to make the process easier. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Keep in mind, terms and conditions do apply.